Welcome to the Black Sparrow Media Internet Broadcast Network.
You are listening to Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a podcast about Linux, open source, and amateur radio, for everyone. Now here are your hosts, Cheryl, W5MOO, Russ, K5TUX, and Bill, NE4RD.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome. You have tuned in to episode number 596 of Linux in the Ham Shack, the most terrific amateur radio podcast on the internet. This is our Weekender edition, and it's the 134th edition of the Weekender. So we have been doing this for a little bit now, and we will be talking about some random topic that the picker wheel will pick for us, and then we will dive headlong into hedonism. But before we get to that, we will introduce ourselves. I'm Russ, K5TUX.
I'm Cheryl, W5MOO.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD.
Yeah. I almost did the honest thing.
I heard the hesitation. I was like, yeah.
And then my brain was like, no, you idiot, she's here tonight. So,
well, I can quit and go play Minecraft.
Yeah, you can do that after we do the show. How about that?
I see. Okay.
Well, I'm going to be watching football, and you don't give a RA about that. So, you can.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially when it's not the Chiefs.
Yeah.
All right. So hopefully I've got the picker wheel here up in front of me, and with any luck, we'll hear it. If not, we just won't. And there will be a topic anyway. So here we go. And look, no audio. It's like random from one episode to the next. Oh, okay. Well, as a topic, I guess I don't know. We've kind of talked about it tangentially now and again. But it picked, this was a user-submitted topic, by the way. It picked, why is HF on a pedestal? What about VHF and UHF? Can we have somebody besides me start on this one?
Yes, I'll start. Jeez,
why is HF? Bill, yeah. So, yeah.
Why is HF on a pedestal? I don't necessarily think it's on a pedestal. I tend to lean more towards HF myself. HF is nice because, you can talk much further, generally. There's more bands in HF. You don't have to wait for some interesting type of propagation to occur, tropospheric ducting, meteor scatter, E-clouds, in the opening for 6, or, a double skippy or something like that, which are really cool and amazing. But, that's just, HF has a little bit more going for it. You hear more people on sideband. If you've ever been on VHF or UHF sideband, there's not many people talking on it anymore. It used to be really popular probably, 20, 30 years ago, or maybe even more. But I think a lot of people use UHF and VHF primarily for repeater traffic and DMR, D-Star, and stuff like that. When it comes to satellites, VHF and UHF are king. I don't think there's any HF birds left that I can think of off the top of my head. So you won't see any HF doing satellites, but it could. It has done it in the past. That would be pretty awesome again. But yeah, I think I just think it's availability and being able to talk on so many different bands, and also be able to try out all the modes and not have to be overly concerned about the right propagation or perhaps even the right antenna. Although, on 6 meters when it's open, you can pretty much use a coat hanger and don't really worry about the swirls too much. But like everything else, you need to have pretty good antenna. You need to even probably have a beam directional. Squalos will only go so far on UHF and VHF. There's not a lot of gain to them, so there's a lot of like nuances and tricks and tips for making successful UHF VHF operations. However, to make a successful HF operation, you literally just need a wire and not much skill beyond that. So I think it kind of deserves its place as like a popular spot, but I don't really think it's on a pedestal. That seems a bit pretentious.
Well, maybe the wording is a little weird, but I think it's when you think of amateur radio, because when you get into the hobby, HF is sort of like the second layer goal, right? Because there are HF privileges as a technician, but they're very limited. And I presume that not many people take advantage of those as a technician class. And for the people who are interested in doing ham radio full time, they go immediately to general. So they've opened up the floodgates, if you will, of HF operation. I feel like what this question is sort of addressing is if you take repeaters and VoIP and like digital augmentation out of the VHF UHF mix, it suddenly becomes a whole lot more limited. Now there are people who do experimentation and with like disc antennas and things for extending the reach of VHF and UHF propagation. But unless you're getting that, meteor scatter and stuff like that in tropospheric ducting, where, all of a sudden you can hear a repeater that's 700 miles away or whatever, it's pretty limited. And I don't think people are necessarily interested in the tinkering side and the experimentation side of VHF, UHF, and like, what are they? It's like SUHF or whatever when you're getting up into the gigs and the microwave bands and so on.
Yeah, which I think that's, if anything, that's on a pedestal, right? Because those are elite class things, because it's like unobtainium for most people.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one way to look at it. I looked at the question of putting HF on a pedestal as it being like the goal of HF radio, not that it was elite in some way.
The goal of amateur radio is to get on HF. I see.
Right, to be on HF and to spread your signal all over the world, if you will. Try not to push that metaphor too far. Let's see. Don actually is commenting. He says, I am rather certain that he put this topic in. Okay, well, thanks, Don, first of all. And he says, Russell's on the right track with my feelings. People all text upgrades so they can start operating on HF where the magic is. Well, the thing is, when you get those like 1,200 mile contacts on 5 gigahertz, that's more magic than HF. HF is just literally random bouncing of radio waves off the atmosphere. And in a lot of cases, it's more luck than magic. So if we're talking truly about pedestals and elevation and eliteness, as Bill put it, then things like long distance VHF and UHF are kind of those. But since the author of the question is thinking more along my lines, then I guess we'll just go with that. But yeah, I know when I got my license, I got Tech Plus first, but I got General within a week, I think. The whole purpose of that was so I could work CW on HF. Because other than that, at least in the area where I was at the time, all operation on VHF and UHF was just local repeaters, and that's it. Because I happened to be in a pretty remote part of the world, and there weren't a bunch of experimenters around doing things with like mesh networks or long distance dish communication or anything like that on VHF and UHF. It was literally so you could hit the repeater and connect to the auto patch and make phone calls. That was, the sum total of VHF, really. And then when you wanted to do something interesting, you had to do it on HF. I think it automatically gets elevated because you can naturally do more with it. But to be truly, elite L33T, then that's when you get into the VHF, UHF, and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I got my license, there was a big group of people that were doing, sideband on 2 meters and 6 meters and 432. So I got into that early, and I was a Tech Plus for a year, so I didn't get my general until a year after I got my first license. And I had, which I still have, I still have my original radio, my original brick. I still have one of my antennas on the side yard over here, big like 13 element 2 meter beam. And I used to do sideband all the time. I'd have sideband in the car. Would do 250-mile contacts from the car all the time on 2 meters. Driving 80 miles an hour down the highway, work in Cuba and everywhere else. So it was kind of an interesting thing to have that, and I really liked it. But I think a lot of people, maybe this is to Don's thing as well, is that a lot of people that I hear that are techs, and this is not putting them down or anything, but like they sometimes complain that nobody's on the repeater, especially in like an area like this. It's like, well, nobody's on the repeater. Well, get a general and you don't have to worry about that, the repeater. The repeater is what's holding you back. And I always put that into when I think about this question of why should I upgrade. It's because, well, the activity in repeaters sucks. Unless you're in like a really busy area that everybody's using it, and there's multiple digital repeaters and stuff like that, and there's people that are active in those communities. That's great for those areas. I mean, you'd never have to get off there, and maybe you're a CERT member or something like that, and you have GMRS or FRS for that stuff too. So maybe you're used to those trunked systems and stuff like that. When you want to graduate, or find activity or find more people to talk to, you're eventually going to have to spread your wings and get that license upgraded so you can use that equipment. I mean, my son's been licensed for 14, 15 years now, and he's still a tech. He's never upgraded. But he sits there and looks at all my HF radios and he's like, oh, it'd be nice to have that. And his friend's an extra class in Seattle. And it's he should upgrade. That's what he should do.
Right. And I think, obviously the addition of VoIP connectivity and other means of propagating VHF and UHF signals is kind of changing the face of VHF and UHF. But I think for the purposes of this discussion, we should ignore that, because that's really, and I know we've bantered about whether or not that kind of thing is actual ham radio. And while I maintain that it's getting a lot more people interested in ham radio, it is obviously not ham radio. It is clearly another technology.
It's ham radio. It's just different. It's
ham radio plus. It's an augmentation of true ham radio.
Yeah. I mean, when it's active, it's really cool. But I think we have a D-Star repeater here. I've never heard anybody on it. And I have tuned into it once or twice, but you could listen to it for several days and not hear anybody on it. Same thing with the DMR repeater. There's like, I don't know, 4 or 5 stupid repeaters around here that nobody's on. It's like, if that was your only class license, I would see you'd probably be a pretty lonely in that space.
Yeah. What's interesting for me personally is the repeaters. I had several repeaters programmed into my radio here, VHF and UHF both. And then I went through the repeater book again and looking for things that I didn't have programmed that I thought maybe I could possibly hear. And so I managed to eke out another, 8 or 10 repeaters that were sort of at the fringes. We're talking, in the 45 to 50 mile distance from here. And the funny thing about it for me is that those repeaters, the one that I've just recently put in, the ones that are sort of fringe to me that only show up as like a S1, S3 on my meter, and in one case S0. I'm not even sure how I hear it, but it's a C4 FM repeater, and I hear it clear as a bell, even though it doesn't even register on my meter. And all of those are the busiest ones. They're active all the time. So, for the longest time, I thought nobody used VHF and UHF around here until I got into those communities that are just like a little bit further out and sort of at the edge of my range. And suddenly I have to like turn my radio down at night because there's people talking nonstop. So, which is kind of interesting. I have not tried to get on and talk to them. I assume I can. I'm going to guess that my antenna is better receiver than transmitter, but, maybe one of these days. Let's see. There are some comments in the peanut gallery here. Darren, VK60K, said UHF is more about talking to people you know in your local area. HF is commonly about calling CQ. Of course, not a hard and fast rule. So, yeah, absolutely. And Don says, repeaters around here are dead nearly all the time. He's been driving a lot in the past few weeks. Doctor's appointments, zero activity. I get no response to my IDing, much less simplex. Yeah. And again, I had that same experience until recently. The one repeater that I just mentioned is in Pea Ridge, Arkansas, which is, as the crow flies, it's probably right at 50 miles from here. And like I said, it doesn't even register on my meter, but I hear people talking on it all the time. I'd be willing to bet that I can't talk to them, but I also programmed in a couple in the Branson area, and apparently the clubs and stuff down in Branson are pretty active because they talk all the time as well. So it's kind of nice to actually hear things on VHF and UHF now that I did not hear before. But the ones sort of in here close to me, including my own, there's never any stuff on it. So nearest repeater to me is 60 miles on the opposite side of a hill. Bill has that problem. He can only transmit to the south, nothing north. Of course, there's nothing in North Montana anyway, right? So
yeah, that's what I hear. Now, we have some repeaters on top of the rims, but yeah, I can't hit those from down here, but I can hit the ones on the mountain out by the ski hill. So,
all right, very good. So, I don't know, is HF on a pedestal? I think in the sense of as a goal, as an aspiration for amateur radio users, yes, I'd say it is. Because I'd say anybody who wants to go anywhere with the hobby will assume they haven't really done anything in the hobby until they become at least general class and have access to HF and then the ability to talk all over the world or whatever. But as far as elite operators, I don't think HF is where it's at. HF, in that regard, HF is kind of easy, lazy, and random. Whereas doing stuff in the higher frequencies requires a lot more effort.
Yeah, and if you had just reading Don's comments here about driving through town and can't hit them because of the hills and stuff like that, with the HF you probably wouldn't have that problem in the car. You'd have a big antenna on the car. That would be the only problem. Have to skip the McDonald's drive-through. Oh,
and I did want to say something about, you were mentioning about HF birds and satellites. Obviously, the thing about that is when the satellite is in orbit over you, it doesn't matter what the frequency is, you're going to hear it. You don't need HF, you don't need skip, you don't need sporadic E, you don't need any of that junk. It's like, that's why VHF, UHF, and SUHF and stuff like that work on those, on the satellites, because as long as they're in the sky above you and you have an antenna, you'll most likely be able to contact the satellite. So I think that's why there aren't many HF birds anymore. Plus, isn't the hardware like a little more compact when you get into the higher frequencies because they have like the micro transmitters and stuff like that, so you don't have to. So the payloads are lighter.
I don't know. That doesn't require that much more.
Well, for whatever reason, they're no longer a thing. So
yeah. They used to have 2 meter input, so it used to go 2 meters up. So.
Yeah, well, they all operate split, right? They're all either 2 up, 440 down, or
transponder
down, or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you get inverted, whatever sideband stuff like that going across them.
Let's see, the footprint is already large enough on the LEO satellites. So, well, yeah, because they are very small. Those CubeSats are absolutely tiny.
Yeah, sometimes you need a directional antenna for that stuff too. So.
Yeah, you got to have your circularly polarized antenna. It helps a lot if you're trying to decode that stuff. And if you have a rotator and those cool applications that allow you to auto track the birds and correct your radio frequencies for Doppler shift and all that, then now you're getting into elite stuff again.
But some guys work them on your little rubber ducky and stuff like that. Some of those birds.
Yep, absolutely. You can do it with minimal effort, but of course, the more effort you put into it, the more you'll probably get out of it. All right. Anything else from the folks here in the chat? It's pretty active in there.
Does Cheryl have anything to say on this?
Well, Cheryl doesn't talk on the radio, so I'd be curious to see if she has anything to say.
But we forced her to upgrade.
Yeah. I was held at gunpoint to upgrade, but I still don't do anything.
I've given you many times, like if we're driving home in the car from Springfield or something and there's a net on, I will check in and then I'll like hold the mic over and say, all you have to do is give your call sign and say, no comments. And she's like, nope, don't want to do it. It's like,
Sorry, don't. I don't like our local nets, and you know that. So are the one that you specifically check into. So
no, there's a couple others that are not that one that I've checked into, and you don't want to do any of them. So
yeah, well, so people around here are kind of jerks. So
yeah, but all you're doing is signing into a check-in net. It's not
whatever.
political.
Yeah, no, never said anything about anything being political. But
Well, it's not political. It's not personal. It's not anything. It's throwing out your call sign.
yeah, I know.
So they get a +1 on their count. That's it.
Ooh,
Exactly. That's why I don't understand why you won't do it.
so.
All right, that's fine. I'm going to pause here for a second because Donna's still typing. Got to get those net numbers up. Yeah, absolutely. I still am threatening to start up a pre-show net, which I really want to do. So I would like to get some check-ins, even if it's via VoIP or whatever, since I've got all these stupid nodes running around here between All-Star and D-Star and C4FM and M17 and everything else. Might as well use them. Anyway, well, I think that brings us down to the end of that topic, unless there's further discussion in the chat. If there is, we'll pick it up. And in the meantime, we'll bring in Cheryl here and we can run into the hedonism department for tonight. And she can start us off with a food selection for the evening.
Yes, it's fall. So therefore we must start doing fall things. So tonight for my recipe, I've picked skillet apple cider chicken. It's great served with egg noodles. But for this, you need chicken thighs because those, of course, have the best flavor. Salt, olive oil, bacon, onion, chicken broth, apple cider, some apples, some sage leaves, some thyme, and some unsalted butter. And of course, the rest of the recipe will be in the show notes. And for my mixed drink corner, I picked an apple cider margarita. So, the apples here are being picked. It's fall. Russ this morning got up and said, it's fall. So for this, for this, you need apple cider, silver tequila, lemon juice, sugar to rim your glass in, as well as cinnamon, and a little bit of salt, some apple slices, and some cinnamon stick. Those are for your apples and your cinnamons for your garnish. So, and of course, the rest of the recipe will be in the show notes.
Very good. And Don says, dang straight chicken thighs or bust. So
Yeah, see, I'm a breast girl. Sorry, but Russ loves his thighs. So,
yep, I'll put in a vote for thighs in all kinds of ways. So,
alrighty then.
So yeah, we've just been demonetized, except we're not monetized. So
Yeah, so there you go.
Darren says
Nothing to
everything is
lose.
better with bacon.
Yes.
I totally agree. But Darren, you make your own bacon, right? You raise your own bacon, if I'm correct. Oh no, he does not do bacon. Just the beef.
No.
Yep, just beef. So you do definitely have the best steaks, though.
Nice.
He says he buys the bacon from the guy who cuts up his beef. That's funny. Well, it totally makes sense, though. That means it's going to be somebody else's locally raised pork. So, yeah, obviously it's going to be really good. So, all right. Well, that being said, let's move on to my drink corner for tonight. And for tonight, I have a bottle that has been gathering dust on the shelf for several years at this point. We had a discussion earlier. We're not exactly sure how long it's been sitting on the shelf, but it has been a while. I'm guessing, I think this was post-COVID, but not by a lot. So I'm going to guess it's 4 years old or something like that. And this comes out of Iron Republic Distillery, which is a Texas distillery in Denison, Texas, about 5 hours-ish from here. And when we go to Texas, pretty much if we go to Dallas or Waco or Austin or San Antonio or any of those places, we pretty much have to go right by Iron Root Republic, so we often stop. And the last time we stopped, I think I bought like 4 bottles. I think there's 4 bottles of stuff in there that I bought from Iron Root that are still sealed, except not this one anymore. This is the Promethean, which is a Texas straight bourbon. This particular bottle is batch P16. And if you're worried about like whether or not you could try this, they do have an online store. You can buy it. I think they're getting some retail placement now, but for the most part, even if you buy it online, you may have to go to Denison, Texas. They're still sort of in the, you have to pick it up at the distillery phase. A lot of other distilleries in Texas are able to ship. I'm not sure they are yet. But anyway, they have a lot of different whiskeys. They like to experiment with corn. This particular bourbon has 4 different corns in it. It has an 80% yellow corn mash. There's 5%, I think it's purple corn, 5% Bloody Butcher, and 5% something else. And then it's also 5% rye, because why not? The proof on this one is 100 proof. It's 50%. I don't know if it's bottled in bond, but it certainly could be because they produce everything in-house. So I think by default it's bottled in bond, but I don't believe it says so on the label. The color on this, because it's Texas, is dark. It's a nice, rich amber. This has only been aged for 2.5 years. This is one of those ones where in the bourbon category, if it's less than 2 or more than 4, you don't have to put an age statement on. But since it's between 2 and 4, they do. So they specify it's 30 months. And the taste on this, well, we'll start with the nose, I guess. The nose is pretty not complex, I guess you would say. There's a couple of notes. It's a little bit spicy. It's a little bit like phenolic. And you definitely get some smoked figs or prunes or dark fruit and some tobacco. And then it opens up a lot when you take a sip of it. You get candied prunes, other dark fruits, caramel, dark chocolate, raisin, dusty oak, and cayenne pepper. It's hot, but not alcohol hot. It actually is more like pepper spice. And then that pepper spice sort of coats everything in your mouth and it lingers into the finish. And you get some of that dark, fruity, oaky, and just mixed with some heat, like cayenne heat. It's pretty good for being only aged 2.5 years. It's got quite a bit of character. I put a little bit of water in it here to see if it changed anything, and I'm going to find out right now. It's pretty much the same. It may have picked up a little bit of leather and maybe some citrus with a touch of water. So that's kind of nice. And this has definitely got a smoky, it isn't smoky. It doesn't taste like smoke. It's not ashy. But if you were drinking this near a campfire, I think you would recognize that sort of character in it. And it's actually pretty good. They listed at $50. I'm pretty sure it was $45 or $50 at the distillery. And this is the first time I've had a Texas whiskey in, I don't know, long time. So it's kind of bringing back to me what the Texas whiskeys taste like. So I'm really kind of enjoying it. The quality is good, and I would give this about an 87, I think, on my 100-point rating scale. It's actually quite nice, and I plan to drink more of this tonight. So I'm going to continue doing that while Bill tells you about some other stuff.
Yeah, and this is another haul from my Headframe Spirits trip, although we've had this many times in the past because it's available everywhere here. This is a Headframe Spirits in Butte, Montana. It's Orphan Girl. It's their bourbon cream liqueur. It's, let's see, their description. West of town, the Orphan Girl mine stands as the centerpiece of the World Museum of Mining, a testament to Butte's rich legacy. Our Orphan Girl makes a perfect centerpiece for your evening and can be used for sipping, mixing, baking, and making great memories. Tasty notes on it. See the nose, it says bourbon and caramel. And the palate is rich and creamy, but not too sweet, finishing with the hints of caramel and bourbon. Contents are shelf-stabilized Wisconsin cream mixed with our Never Sweat straight bourbon whiskey, which I talked about Never Sweat, I think, last time that we did one of these. It's a low ABV. It's only 35. It's 17.5% alcohol, and it's about $30. I think $29.95 is what it goes for. And it makes a nice staple drink they call a Dirty Girl, which is basically root beer and the bourbon cream, and it tastes really good. It's I had one of those earlier until I lit up a cigar, and I was like, oh yeah, cream liqueurs don't go well with cigars, so I quickly finished it, and then I'm enjoying my cigar. So that's Headframe Spirits, Orphan Girl.
I will slightly disagree with your assessment of cream liqueurs, because if you put a little bit of Bailey's and some coffee and have a cigar with it, those are really good. So
well, maybe the coffee would be different, but this is like, it was too sweet. It was just, it didn't work out. It just tasted weird on my palate.
Fair enough. All right. Well, but bourbon creams are just really good. When we went to Buffalo Trace, we got the, Freddy's root beer with their own bourbon cream. And yeah, the stuff's amazing. So
if you want to upproof it, you can always add a little bit more Never Sweat into it. So it'd be good.
Or you could just throw some Everclear in it.
Oh, yeah. But if you want a more bourbon-y taste, keep the bourbon in there.
Oh, yeah. The profile. Right. Got it. All right. Well, that brings us down to the end of hedonism for tonight. But of course, you're free to continue with all the hedonism you like after the show is over. And I will certainly be doing that as well. But before we get out of here and let you get back to whatever it was you were doing, we'll bring in Cheryl to read the new subscribers, supporters, and live participants. But in the meantime, if you can help out the show financially, that'd be great. Help us keep the lights on. Keep us doing this every week for you. You can subscribe over on Patreon, PayPal, buy some merch, submit some topics. Our list is actually dwindling, and I imagine by the end of the year, we're definitely going to need some more. And, of course, sign up over on YouTube and check out some of the YouTube content that's popping up over there. With that, we'll bring in Cheryl here to do the list and get us down to the end of the show.
Alrighty then. So this time, we didn't have any new subscribers or Patreons. For our free Patreons, we had JP, no one on Twitter, no one on Instagram. For Mastodon, we had at KJ6LNH and at SA7SKY. No one joined us on Blue Sky, no one on the mailing list. And on Discord, we had Mike Theron. And in the live chat, we have Mike, K6GTE, Darren, VK6EK, and Don, KB2VSI.
YSI.
Sorry,
He's in the
excuse
chat
me.
too, so forgive her, Don, please.
Sorry, yeah. I'm dying of allergies right now, and for some reason, my bifocals aren't doing me very well tonight. So
Maybe you need to take another nap.
Or maybe I need to go get my eyes examined again and find out what's going on.
Oh, well, there's that too. But, yeah. Don says he's been called a lot worse. That's good.
Funny, I had that same discussion earlier tonight with someone else. So,
all right. Well, that brings us down to the end of the show. So thank you, everybody, for listening to this edition of The Weekender, number 134. We appreciate it. Hope you found something interesting and enjoyable, and maybe pick up some whiskey or some bourbon cream in your travails and trials and tribulations of life. And always enjoy the hedonism, because, that's what makes life worth living. And with that, we'll get on out of here. We'll catch you again in a week for a deep dive. Hope you join us again for that. And for right now, we'll say so long from episode number 596 of Linux in the Ham Shack. I'm Russ, K5TUX.
I'm Cheryl, W5MOO.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD73.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a community-sponsored podcast. Live recordings are Sunday nights at 8 o'clock Central Time. Our homepage can be found at lhspodcast.info. You can support the podcast via Patreon at patreon.com/LHS podcast. We're also on Discord, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Mastodon. Contact us via email at info@lhspodcast.info or via voicemail at 190954777469. That's 1909 LHS show. We also have merch. So until next we meet, remember to always heed your hedonism.